it is extremely difficult right now not to look ahead to Halloween weekend and the great matchups from Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Penn State, even Purdue, Nebraska. There are some outstanding matchups on the spookiest weekend of the calendar year, but I'm not quite there yet. And the teams that I'm talking about in today's Final Friday Feeling shouldn't be looking ahead either. What's going on, everybody? Big Ten Ted here coming at you today for my Final Friday Feelings. What do we at? I think we're at week 8 here of the college football season. And as teams enter, remember last week we're like, well, not much going on. Iowa, Purdue, yawn fest. It turned out to be a yawn fest, just not in the favor of Iowa and not the way I think a lot of people thought that one was going to go down. Nebraska, Minnesota, didn't think that would be a great game. A lot of people thought Nebraska might roll in that one, myself included, but Minnesota showed up, and they showed up strong in Minneapolis. So now we come to this week. You got games like Northwestern and Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, teams that yawn fest possibly, but watch out, Michigan. They better be ready to go and not be looking ahead to Michigan State. Sparty has a bye so they can pick apart every little thing from that Michigan game. Sit down, watch the Gus and Joel show, and see what Michigan has to offer. They better be careful. They're at home, but one other team, their arch rival, is not so lucky. They're going to be on the road. Watch out for Indiana. Remember what they did last week? They played pretty good defense against the Michigan State team that I jinxed, talking about their explosive offense a week before that game, and they just barely scraped by Indiana in that one. Sounds like Tuttle's going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future in Bloomington. That game is in Bloomington. Now, if Indiana's offense can do anything, maybe they'd have a shot. That defense looked pretty good. But this is an Ohio State offense that is playing on another planet. And not a lot of people nationally are talking about them right now. This for Ohio State right now. We're going to learn a lot about them. Because although this Indiana offense isn't outstanding, they still have some decent players on their team. And that Ohio State defense that was torn apart after that Oregon contest, they are going to get tested against Indiana. We're at least going to try to at least kind of find out where this Ohio State defense is. And when you talk about this Buckeye offense, that's a test against this Indiana defense. That's a solid IU defense. IU definitely has not lived up to expectations on offense or defense or special teams or in any phase of their football team. But this should be a test for Ohio State going to Indiana before Ohio State's schedule gets real hard. Right? Penn State on Halloween weekend, and then Michigan State, and of course Michigan at the end of the season. It is going to be extremely hard for Ohio State. So I'm kind of hoping they get tested and they get battle tested, and this one isn't over by the second or third quarter. I hope that they get a 4-quarter game for their sake against the Indiana Hoosiers. A bye this week couldn't come at a better time for the Iowa Hawkeyes, right? After getting beaten and blown out, and some might say embarrassed by Purdue on their home field, a bye couldn't come at a better time to regroup and refresh. Maybe they can get Riley Moss back on the field after he was not able to play against Purdue. They've got Wisconsin coming out of the bye week. So if the Badgers can find a way to beat Purdue, that could be a really interesting game in the Big Ten West. I'll get to that in just a minute. But a bye, great time to work on some things. Sit back, watch that Purdue-Wisconsin game and see what can happen. Boy, that Iowa-Wisconsin game next week, that could be a 6-3 final. Two very good defenses, and their offenses are pretty average. We'll just say it at that. So, big time bye this week. Couldn't come at a better time for the Hawkeyes. Looking at Purdue and Wisconsin. This is a statement game for a couple of teams. Purdue, right? Big win, huge win last week. And now they're in the top 25. And now people are looking at them. And they face a Wisconsin team that's really good on defense. And this Wisconsin team doesn't have much on the offensive side of the ball. This, to me, has shades of the Notre Dame game for Wisconsin. It's got shades of the Penn State game where maybe Wisconsin's defense can hold on for 2 quarters, 2.5, 3 quarters, but they're not going to be able to hold on for a whole game. I don't believe they're going to be able to throw a perfect game because that offense, they need run support, right? Making these baseball analogies. They need run support from that offense. I just don't think Wisconsin has it right now. This is a Purdue defense that's pretty solid. It's not like Illinois or Army that Wisconsin faced last week. Wisconsin barely beat Army. Nobody really knew about that. 20-14 was the final. So Purdue, they could make a big-time statement, knock Bucky out of the Big Ten West Division race and really prove, hey, we're for real. You beat Iowa and Wisconsin in back-to-back weeks. That could mean the Boilermakers have got something to offer. Minnesota, this is another prove-it game for the Golden Gophers, right? Taking on a team in Maryland. I want to see a four-quarter game on the offensive side of the football from Minnesota, right? They got off to that big lead, scored 21 points in the first half against Nebraska, and threw 2 interceptions in that second half, and they didn't really score anything offensively until that big run late in the fourth quarter. So I want to see a full four-quarter game, and that's what it might take to beat a team like Maryland that's very good on the offensive side of the ball. I said it in the preview, Maryland doesn't have their top 2 threats at wide receiver, so we'll see if Talia can elevate guys like Raheem Jarrett and other guys in that receiving core to put up some points, to put up some yardage, and move the ball against this Minnesota defense. But watch out for that Gopher defense, one of the more underrated defenses and maybe units in the conference and maybe nationally this season. You look back at their results and you look back at their statistics, this is a Minnesota defense that's pretty good. One might argue it's the best PJ Fleck defense in that era that the Golden Gophers have had. So Minnesota and Purdue, those two teams, just one loss in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten West this season, both those teams could really prove that, say, hey, we're not flukes right now. We are to be taken seriously in the Big Ten West. I'm not sure if I see any big-time upsets like Purdue beating Iowa last week. Northwestern beating Michigan. Don't see it. Indiana could give Ohio State some troubles, but then don't see that one being an Indiana victory. I want to know what you guys think. These are my final Friday feelings going into this Saturday. And then, of course, the big weekend next weekend. We're going to have all 5 days chock full with previews for all of that big Halloween weekend matchups in the Big Ten Conference. Leave your thoughts in the comments below about this week and anything you want to talk about Big Ten football related. Subscribe for Big Ten football content. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.